I thought the worst thing that could happen was losing my relationship, until I realized someone was using my name like a tool. My phone lights up with a single message that sounds polite but feels like a threat. My mother insists my wedding isn't mine unless she approves the guest list. My brother repeats the same excuse, softer, like it's reasonable. My father calls it keeping the peace and expects me to pay the price. I stare at a tiny venue limit and feel my chest squeeze. More seats means more control. Less space means more pressure. My mother offers solutions that sound like sacrifices, and every option somehow removes the people I love most. Then I hear the line that always makes my stomach drop, that I'm selfish for having boundaries. A friend texts like nothing is wrong, but my friend already knows what I don't. A breakup happens without respect, without honesty, like my feelings are an inconvenience. I hold a spare key in my palm and suddenly understand what access really means. I slide that key into an envelope with no note, no apology, no tears, and the quiet feels louder than a scream. My bank app shows money I didn't earn. It looks like relief, but it tastes like a trap. I make one call to do the right thing, and the word recovery lands in my lap like a bill. I start cutting off shared accounts, changing passwords, pulling my memories out of places that don't feel safe anymore. Then an unfamiliar voice asks me to confirm an address I know by heart. I start digging. A credit alert I never asked for. A loan I never agreed to. A family favor that suddenly has my signature attached. I ask one question, and the answer comes back as silence. And when I push again, the excuse changes. From helping to you're overreacting. I walk into a house that trained me to doubt myself. I open a folder that was never meant for my eyes. I see my own information filed like it belongs to someone else. My mother calls it love. My brother calls it necessity. My father calls it misunderstanding. I keep my voice calm because I've learned that calm is the only thing people can't twist. Someone tells me to handle it privately. Someone else says I'm dramatic. And the moment I stop begging for respect, the whole family suddenly acts like I'm the threat. I don't yell. I don't plead. We document. I lock down my credit. I put protections in place that can't be guilt-tripped. I bring a witness. I turn silence into proof. Then I find the one detail that proves my mother didn't do it alone at all. All right, let me rewind to where it actually started. My name is Waverly. I'm 26, and I work as a patient care coordinator at a busy clinic, which means I'm used to other people's emergencies becoming my schedule. That morning, my phone buzzed while I was balancing a paper cup of burnt coffee and a tote bag that smelled like antiseptic wipes. The screen lit up with a single line from my boyfriend. We should talk tonight, for real. I stared at it too long, like the words might rearrange into something kinder. We'd known each other since kindergarten. Same neighborhood streets, same dusty school auditorium talent shows, same parents waving from the back. He wasn't some random boyfriend I met at a party. He knew my childhood nickname, my grandmother's recipes, the exact way I get quiet when I'm overwhelmed. That history made me trust him differently, and it made it harder to accept that he could still choose to hurt me. At lunch, I stepped outside behind the clinic, where the sun hit the pavement so hard it made the air shimmer. I called him. No answer. I called again, straight to voicemail. My best friend, Sloan, texted me a selfie from a cafe, foam art in the shape of a heart. You okay? You sound weird. I typed, deleted, typed again. He's acting off. Can you meet after work? She replied fast. Of course, I'll be there. That should have comforted me. Instead, it left a sour taste, because Sloan had been in the middle of my relationship for months, laughing too loudly at his jokes, showing up to group hangs early, staying late to help clean up. I told myself I was being paranoid. I grew up in a house where my dad could twist reality until I apologized for being upset. I'd learned to doubt my own instincts the way other people doubt bad weather. If my chest tightened, I blamed anxiety. If I felt disrespected, I blamed sensitivity. But still, my stomach knew. After work, I drove straight to my mom's place because I needed grounding before I had the conversation I could feel coming. Mom's kitchen always smelled like onions and dish soap, a weird comfort. She was hunched over a tiny guest list spreadsheet on her tablet, reading names out loud like a prayer. We're keeping it small, I reminded her, slipping my keys into the bowl by the door. Just siblings and close people. That's the plan. Mom didn't look up. Small is like flexible. Your aunt will be crushed. Your grandmother will have a heart attack. And your brother says he's not comfortable driving down alone, not with everything going on. He wants his in-laws invited. I blinked. His sister-in-law and brother-in-law? I barely know them. Mom's finger tapped the screen like she was trying to summon a different answer. They're citizens. It makes him feel safer. Don't you care about your brother? There it was. The pressure point. The way Mom could take a boundary and turn it into a moral failure. I exhaled slowly. We have a limited capacity. If I add people, I'd rather add people I actually talk to. Mom's mouth pinched. Then uninvite your father. Uninvite your grandparents. Make room. The suggestion hit me like cold water. Mom hated my dad, but she loved using him as a bargaining chip. She'd sacrifice anyone's feelings if it meant winning the argument. I could practically hear her rehearsing the phone calls, telling the family how my fiancé was controlling me. My fiancé and I decided this together, I said carefully. It's not a debate. Mom's eyes finally lifted. So your fiancé is the one saying no. No, I repeated, steady. We are. Mom leaned back and crossed her arms. You're being selfish. Weddings are for family, not whatever this is. I could have argued. I could have raised my voice, but my therapist's words floated up. You don't have to attend every invitation to chaos. So I did something that felt unfamiliar and powerful. I stood there, quiet, and let her sit with my no. Mom huffed, grabbed her phone, and started typing aggressively with both thumbs. Fine. I'll ask your brother and your father what they think. A flash of dread ran through me. Not because I thought I was wrong, but because I knew what came next. The pile-on, the group chat, the calls, the guilt. The story about me that would get passed around until I barely recognized myself in it. I left before I could talk myself out of leaving. Sloan met me at a little parking lot near a grocery store. Because it was neutral, public, and I didn't trust my own voice not to break. She walked up with her hair pulled back and that concerned expression that always made strangers strangers want to confide in her. Tell me everything, she said, sliding into my passenger seat like this was her place. I took a breath. He wants to talk tonight. He's been cold. I feel like he's building up to something. Sloane's hand rested lightly on my arm. You're overthinking. You always do this. I stared at her hand until she pulled it back. Maybe, but I feel it. She looked out the windshield, then back at me. Are you still, still doing your whole boundary thing? The way she said it, whole boundary thing, made my face go hot. It's not a thing, I said, trying to keep my tone calm. It's my boundary. I told him from the beginning. I'm not getting intimate before marriage. Sloane shrugged. Some guys need physical connection to feel secure, and I need respect to feel safe, I said. Her eyes flicked away for half a second. It was small, almost nothing. But it was the first micro twist, the first crack in her performance. Sloane wasn't reacting like someone defending me. Sloane was reacting like someone managing a situation. I drove home with that thought stuck under my skin like a splinter. That evening, my boyfriend showed up at my apartment without knocking, like he still had the right. I'd once given him a spare key because it felt romantic, because we were basically family. He walked in holding a plastic bag from a pharmacy, like he'd brought me something caring, and that contrast made my throat tighten. He didn't sit. He stayed standing near my couch, eyes darting around like he was searching for an exit. I can't do this anymore, he said. I waited for the rest. Some explanation that made sense. Something adult. He rubbed the back of his neck. I've tried. I've respected your rule, but I'm not going to marry someone without knowing we're compatible. I swallowed hard. You knew my stance. From the beginning, he exhaled like that was the annoying part. Yeah, but I thought you'd change. I thought once you felt safe with me, you'd relax. The word relax made me want to laugh, but no sound came out. My hands were cold. My heart was loud in my ears. So what are you saying? I asked, even though I knew. His eyes finally met mine. I'm saying I'm done waiting. It's not fair to me. Fair. Like my body was a service he'd been paying into. I felt my chest crack open. Is this really about waiting? Or is this about someone else? His jaw tightened. Don't start. That was confirmation. People don't say don't start unless there's something to start. I took another breath, forcing my voice to stay smooth. Just tell me the truth. He didn't, not directly. He mumbled about being unhappy, about feeling rejected, about how I was holding back. And then he did the most insulting thing. He tried to hug me, like he could break up with me and still keep access to my comfort. I stepped back. No. His face hardened. See? This is what I mean. He walked out, and the second the door shut, my phone rang. Mom? I stared at the screen until it stopped. Then it rang again and again. A message popped up from my brother. Call me. Mom says you're refusing to invite people and putting everyone in danger. Danger. Over a guest list. My hands shook. It was like the universe was stacking pressure on every side at once. My relationship collapsing, my family crowding in, my wedding turning into a battlefield, personal boundary, social pylon, practical stakes, reputation. Because I could already imagine Mom telling people my fiancé was controlling, that I was cold, that I'd changed. And then, as if to complete the circle, my paycheck notification buzzed. A deposit from an old part-time job I'd left months ago. The company name sat there like a ghost. My stomach dropped. That money was an accident, a payroll mistake, the kind of thing that looks like a blessing until someone asks for it back. I'd been saving every spare dollar for the wedding and for my mom's endless emergencies. Now, I was staring at free money I couldn't trust. It felt like a metaphor for my whole life. I kept being paid in stress. I didn't have time to process any of it before my phone lit up again, this time with a text from my boyfriend. One line. Please don't be dramatic about this. I stared at the message until my vision blurred. Dramatic. Like I was crying over a movie. Like I hadn't given him years of loyalty. Tutoring him through classes, covering bills when he was short, showing up emotionally when he fell apart. I'd given him everything except the one thing I'd said was off limits until marriage. And somehow that made me the unreasonable one. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my spare key drawer. The key ring he'd once called our future sat there, glinting under the lamp. I picked it up, held it for a second, and felt something inside me shift. Not rage, not panic. Clarity. Then my phone buzzed again. This time a message from Sloane. I heard you two talked. Are you okay? He hadn't told me. He'd told her. My fingers went cold around the key ring because suddenly the whole day rearranged itself in my mind. And the third wheeler? I'd been gaslighting myself about didn't feel imaginary anymore. My thumb hovered over the keyboard while Sloane's message glowed on my screen. I could have asked her how she heard. I could have demanded she tell me what he said. But I've learned something about people who like to sit in the middle. They feed on reactions. They want you loud and messy so they can look calm and reasonable. So I typed one word. Fine. Then I put my phone face down and stared at the spare key in my palm, like it might burn through my skin. I walked to my door, stepped into the hallway, and slid the key into a plain envelope. No note, no speech. No dramatic line that could be screenshot and passed around. Just the key, returned like a closed chapter. On my way back inside, my neighbor's door opened. A man I barely knew nodded politely, holding a little trash bag. I forced a smile because that's what I do when my life is falling apart and I don't want the world to smell the smoke. The next morning, I woke up to a full-blown family storm. Mom had created a group chat. Of course she had. She'd titled it Wedding Family Plan. Like this was a corporate meeting and not my actual life. Messages were stacked like bricks. My brother. Mom says you're making it hard for everyone. Why can't you just invite them? My father. Be reasonable. Family comes first. My aunt. Your grandma is crying. You're breaking her heart. My chest tightened as I scrolled. Not one person asked if I was okay. Not one person said, hey, I heard you got dumped last night, because Mom hadn't told them that part. Or maybe she had, but she'd packaged it as proof of my selfishness. Either way, I was being treated like a stubborn child who needed correcting. I dropped the phone on the couch and pressed my palms against my eyes. My therapist once told me, when you're the family peacekeeper, people panic when you stop bleeding quietly. I wanted to call my fiancé, my actual fiancé, the man who had backed me up against Mom's manipulation, but I couldn't, because the word fiancé still sat in my mouth soft like a fragile thing, and every time I touched it, it threatened to crumble. So I did something practical, because practicality is the only thing that steadies me when emotions get too loud. I opened my laptop and pulled up the venue contract. The micro-wedding plan wasn't just a preference. It was a logistical boundary. There were capacity limits. There were deposit policies. There were actual consequences for changing the guest list. And tucked into the second page, in the fine print, was a clause I'd skimmed before but never fully absorbed. If the guest count changes within a certain window, the venue can adjust staffing and fees, and any conflict that disrupts the event can result in termination without refund. I read it twice, then 3 times. It wasn't a weapon. It was a shield. A quiet legal boundary that didn't require shouting. My phone vibrated again. A private message from Mom this time. "You're letting your fiancé control you. I'm embarrassed for you. Fix this." I stared at the words until they stopped looking like language. Then I took a screenshot, not because I wanted to expose her, but because I needed proof for myself. In my family, reality always got rewritten. Screenshots were how I kept my own sanity intact. Micro twist number 2 hit a few minutes later, and it was the kind that makes your stomach go hollow. My old job's payroll deposit hit again. It wasn't just one mistaken check. It was a pattern. I sat at my kitchen table staring at my banking app, feeling my pulse in my throat. That money could disappear as fast as it came, or worse, it could become a debt, a clawback, something that would bite me later. I thought of rent, wedding deposits, the way Mom treated my savings like a community pool, and I had a sudden, sharp realization. I was surrounded by people who felt entitled to my resources, my time, my money, my emotional labor, my body, and none of them felt obligated to protect me from the consequences. That thought made me stand up so fast my chair scraped. I called the payroll office from that old job. My voice was steady, polite, almost boring, because if I sounded too emotional, I knew I'd be brushed off. "Hi," I said. "I think there's been a mistake. I haven't worked there in a while, but deposits are still coming through." The woman on the line went quiet for a second, then asked for my information. I listened to typing, more typing, a sigh. "Oh," she said. "Yeah, it looks like you were never fully terminated in the system. That's on us. We'll stop the payments immediately. We might need to recover some funds." My stomach tightened. "I haven't spent most of it," I said carefully. "I was worried this would happen." "Good," she replied like I'd passed a test. "We'll send you documentation." When I hung up, I felt both relieved and sick. Doing the right thing didn't feel heroic. It felt expensive. But it also felt like reclaiming control. And control was something I desperately needed because I could feel my personal life spiraling toward humiliation. That afternoon, Sloan asked to meet. "Please," she wrote. "I hate that we're weird." Weird. Like she hadn't inserted herself into my relationship like a knife. We met at the same cafe as the day before, the one with 2 bright lights and forced cozy vibes. Sloan arrived looking perfectly put together. Glossy hair, clean nails, that soft makeup that makes people want to trust you. She hugged me like we were still the same. "I'm so sorry," she said, pulling back with wet eyes. I didn't know it would happen like that. My heart dropped. Not because I was surprised, because she'd admitted it without even realizing she'd admitted it. I kept my face calm. "Like what?" She blinked, then recovered fast. "Like him leaving you. I mean, I knew you two were struggling." "Did you?" I asked softly. "No, he was going to break up with me?" Her lips parted. He was upset. I watched her closely. She wouldn't look me in the eye. Her fingers fidgeted with the sleeve of her sweater. "You're not answering," I said. Sloan exhaled like she was exhausted by my questions. "Okay, fine. Yes." He talked to me. He was venting. A slow, cold calm spread through me. "And you didn't tell me." "He told me not to," she said quickly. And I didn't want to betray him. There it was. The full shape of the betrayal. Not just that she knew. Not just that she stayed quiet. But that she framed her loyalty to him as moral. While mine was supposed to be automatic. "You introduced me to him," I said, voice still low. She rolled her eyes a little. Just a flicker. But it was enough. "I didn't introduce you. You've known him forever." "Not like this," I said. "Not inside my relationship." Sloan leaned forward, voice dropping as if we were sharing secrets. "Look, I didn't plan for feelings. It just happened." I stared at her. My hands were folded in my lap, nails pressing into my palm hard enough to hurt. I kept my voice gentle. "Are you sleeping with him?" Her cheeks flushed. She hesitated. That hesitation was loud. "It's not like that," she said. That was another answer without an answer. I nodded slowly. "Okay." Sloane's eyes narrowed. "Okay?" "Yes," I said, standing up. "Okay." The calmness seemed to unsettle her more than anger would have. She reached for my wrist. "Don't do this," she said. "We're best friends." I gently pulled my arm away. Best friends don't protect secrets that destroy you. I walked out without raising my voice, without crying, without giving her a scene to narrate later. In the parking lot, my phone buzzed. A message from my ex. "Can we talk? I didn't mean for it to go like that. I still care about you." I stared at it, and something in me almost cracked. Not because I missed him, but because he was trying to keep the same dynamic. Hurt me, then keep access to my softness. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my contacts and changed his name. Not to something petty, just his actual name. No heart emoji, no inside joke. Just reality. Then I did something else quiet. I logged into the shared streaming account we'd been using. I changed the password. I removed my card. I checked the shared cloud album we'd created years ago. Photos from birthdays, beach days, random sleepy selfies, and I downloaded everything that was mine. Not because I wanted to erase the past, but because I refused to let him hold my memories hostage. Silent revenge wasn't about punishing him. It was about cutting off access to the version of me he didn't deserve anymore. That night, the family pressure escalated. My brother called. "Mom says you're refusing to compromise," he said, voice tense. "I'm just trying to get down to your wedding safely." "I'm not refusing to compromise," I replied, keeping my tone even. "I'm refusing to be manipulated. Those people are strangers to me. If you need support on the drive, bring a friend you actually trust, or I can help you find a plan." He sighed. "Mom says your fiancé fiance is turning you against us. I closed my eyes. Is that what you think? A pause, then quieter. I don't know. I just don't want drama. I almost laughed. Drama was already here. It lived in my mother's phone. I don't want drama either, I said. That's why I'm saying no now, before it becomes a disaster later. He didn't answer, and I realized he wasn't calling to understand. He was calling to apply pressure, even if it was gentle, even if he didn't mean it that way. After I hung up, I sat on my couch in the dark, listening to the hum of the fridge. My chest felt heavy, my throat burned. I wanted to cry, but tears felt like surrender. Then my phone lit up again. A call from an unknown number. I answered, because my job has trained me to answer calls I shouldn't. A man's voice, clipped and polite. Hello, I'm calling regarding a report filed about possible identity misuse connected to a tax filing. I'm verifying an address. My body went still. Identity misuse, tax filing, address verification. I swallowed. Who is this again? He repeated it, more official this time. My heart started pounding, because suddenly, the money mistake from my old job, the wedding conflict, the breakup, the way people used my name like a resource, everything collided into one sick, clear thought. Someone was using my information, and the only people who had access to certain details were the people closest to me. My fingers tightened around the phone as the man continued, asking if I recognized a particular address. I recognized it immediately. It was my parents' address. My mouth went dry as the investigator repeated my parents' address, spelling it slowly like it was any ordinary thing. I stared at the wall across from me, the paint suddenly too bright, the silence too loud. Yes, I said carefully, that's my parents' house. Why would that be connected to me? There was a pause, the kind where you can hear someone deciding how much they're allowed to say. I can't disclose everything over the phone, he said, but a return was submitted that appears to use identifying information connected to you, and the address on file routes back to that location. We need to confirm you did not authorize it. My pulse hammered. I forced air into my lungs, slow and steady, the way I do when a patient is panicking, and I have to be the calm one. I didn't authorize anything, I said. What exactly was filed? I can mail you the details, he replied. You can also file an identity theft affidavit if needed. We'll need documentation from you. When the call ended, I sat there frozen for a beat, then stood up so fast my knees wobbled. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my laptop, pulled up my credit monitoring portal, and started combing through alerts like I was searching for a splinter under skin. A new inquiry, a recently opened account, something that hadn't existed last month. It was a loan, not huge, but big enough to matter. Big enough to ruin my credit if it went unpaid. And the cosigner information was mine. My throat tightened until it hurt. I didn't even realize I was whispering until I heard myself. No. I called my brother first because my brain needed it to be anyone else. Anyone else. He answered on the third ring, sounding annoyed, like my panic was an interruption. What? He said. I just got a call, I said, voice trembling despite my effort. Someone used my information. There's a loan tied to me. Did you? He went quiet. That silence landed like a punch. Did you use my information? I repeated, slower, calmer. He exhaled hard. Mom said you'd freak out. My vision tunneled. Answer me. She did it, he said quickly. Okay, Mom did it. It was supposed to be temporary. I needed a safer option for work travel. Documentation stuff is messy. She said it would be fine. I pressed my hand to my mouth to stop myself from making a sound that would scare even me. So Mom opened a loan in my name. It's not like she stole from you, he snapped. She was helping family. Helping family? The phrase hit me with a familiar nausea. In my family, helping always meant using whoever won't fight back. And you let her, I said quietly. He got defensive. You always act like you're the only one who sacrifices. I stared at the floor, my fingers numb around the phone. I could almost hear my therapist's voice again. They're not mad that you're wrong. They're mad you're finally hard to use. Send me everything you have, I said. Text me the lender, the amount, the account number, anything. He hesitated. Why? Because if I'm attached to this, I said, voice going flat, I'm going to protect myself. He scoffed. So you're going to ruin us. That sentence was the switch in my brain. The moment my fear turned into clarity. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I just ended the call. Then I called my mother. She picked up on the first ring, like she'd been waiting. Finally, she said, are you ready to be reasonable? I let the silence sit between us for a beat. Did you open a loan using my information? I asked. She didn't deny it. She laughed. Small, irritated, like I was being dramatic about a misplaced spoon. Oh my God, she said. Don't start with this. It was for your brother's safety, and it's being paid. You always make everything about you. My heart thudded, but my voice stayed steady. You committed fraud. She clicked her tongue. It's family. I'm your mother. You're acting like I'm some stranger. I stared at the envelope on my counter, the one that had held my ex's spare key, and suddenly, painfully, I understood why my ex had felt so comfortable calling me dramatic. He'd learned it from the same ecosystem Sloan thrived in. People who benefit from your boundaries being weak will always call you the problem when they finally have consequences. Tell me the truth, I said softly. Did you do this alone or did someone help you? Mom didn't answer right away, and that delay told me everything. I took a breath. Did my ex help you get my information? Mom sighed like I was exhausting her. You left documents at my house sometimes. I'm not the villain for knowing my own daughter's information. My stomach twisted. Did he help you file something too? Taxes? Her voice sharpened. Mind your business. I almost smiled because she'd finally given me the cleanest confirmation. There was more. She was hiding more. I ended the call without another word. For a few minutes, I just stood there, listening to my own breathing, feeling the old childhood reflex to collapse into guilt. Then I I moved, not with rage, with purpose. First, I opened my folder of screenshots. Mom's message accusing my fiancé of controlling me. The group chat pile-on. The sudden urgency about inviting strangers. All of it formed a pattern. Pressure, manipulation, and then an attempt to redirect blame onto someone else. Second, I opened the venue contract again and highlighted the termination clause, then forwarded it to my fiancé with one line. We need security and a plan. Mom is escalating. My fiancé called immediately. Are you safe? That question, simple, direct, made my throat burn. I am, I said. But my mom used my information to open a loan. And there's a tax thing tied to my parents' address. I think my ex helped. There was a pause, then my fiancé's voice went lower. Steadier. Okay, no panic. We handle this step by step. No yelling. No dramatic speeches. Just a plan. It felt like stepping out of fog. That night, I went to my parents' house because I needed physical proof of what I already knew. And because I'd spent too many years being told I imagined things. Mom opened the door with her chin lifted, like she was ready for war. My dad was behind her, pretending he was neutral while still being complicit. The living room smelled like lemon cleaner and control. You're making this bigger than it is, Mom said immediately. Your brother needed help. I didn't argue. I walked past her, straight to the hallway cabinet where she kept folders. The same cabinet she'd always told me not to touch as a kid. My dad stepped forward. Don't, he warned. I looked at him calm. If I'm tied to a loan, it's already my business. Mom's face twisted. How dare you come into my house and this is the part where you stop, my fiancé said from behind me. He'd come with me, not to fight, but to witness. Mom's eyes snapped to him. See? Controlling. My fiancé didn't react. He held up his phone. I'm recording audio, he said evenly. For clarity. Mom froze. And I understood why she was panicking. She couldn't rewrite what she was about to say. I opened the cabinet and found it faster than I expected because she wasn't as careful as she thought. A folder labeled with my name. Inside, printed copies of my old employment paperwork, my address history, and a tax document I hadn't seen in years. My hands shook as I flipped through it. Not just because it was violating, but because it was so familiar. The same feeling I'd had as a kid when my dad insisted I'd misheard him. When he swore he never said what I knew he said. But paper doesn't gaslight. Paper just sits there, quiet, honest. Then I found it. A printed email confirmation for a filing that included my identifying information, routed to my parents' address. And in the corner of the printout, a sticky note in my ex's handwriting because I knew it, the way you know someone's voice after years. It said, use this version. Less flags. My stomach dropped through the floor. My fiancé inhaled sharply behind me, like he'd seen it too. Mom's voice turned shrill. Put that back. I held the paper up. You involved my ex. Mom's face changed, quick. Defensive to offended, offended to victim. He offered to help, she said, as if that made it noble. You were going to marry into a small wedding and cut your own family out anyway. You were already abandoning us. My hands clenched. So you stole my identity to keep control. I did what I had to do, she snapped. You think you're better than everyone because you have a job and savings and— Stop, my fiancé said, still calm. You're admitting to fraud on recording. Mom's eyes flashed. Turn that off. He didn't. My dad finally spoke, voice low. Let's just talk about this privately. I looked at him. Privately is how this happened. My chest felt tight, but my mind was clear. This was the cliff edge. The moment where my old self would fold, apologize, offer money, promise to fix everything. The moment Mom expected to win. Instead, I took out my phone and calmly photographed every page. Mom lunged forward, but my fiancé stepped between us without touching her, just occupying space like a door. Touch her, he said quietly. And we call the police. Mom stopped. Her breathing was fast, angry. I turned to my dad. I'm leaving. I'm filing the identity theft report. I'm disputing the loan. And you can decide if you want to be part of the truth or part of the cover-up. Then I walked out. In my car, my hands were still shaking. My fiancé sat beside me silent for a moment, then reached over and squeezed my fingers. Right then, right at that cliffhanger. When my chest was tight and the world felt too loud. If you want to support these stories, please hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you think. And if you want more intense, real-life narratives like this, share the video with someone who loves drama with a clean payoff. All right, now let me take you back. The next few days were pure action, not emotion. I filed the identity theft affidavit. I gave the investigator the photos, the loan details, the recording where Mom admitted it, and the sticky note that tied my ex to the filing strategy. I contacted the lender and flagged the account as fraudulent. I froze my credit. I emailed my old job's payroll office confirming the overpayment documentation, so no one could twist that mistake into another weapon. Then I did the quietest revenge of all. I stopped being the family's safety net. When my brother called furious, I didn't argue. I sent him one message. Any contact about the loan goes through the investigator. When my mom tried to weaponize relatives, I didn't defend myself. I simply forwarded the recording to my father with one line. This is what you're protecting. My father didn't reply. But 2 days later, he texted, your mother is scared. I stared at it and felt nothing but a calm, cold clarity. Good. Meanwhile, my ex tried to worm his way back in. He showed up outside my apartment one evening, leaning against his car like he was in a movie, like nostalgia could erase betrayal. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said, voice soft. Your mom asked for help. I thought I was helping your family. I thought you'd understand. I looked at him through the glass door. You helped someone commit fraud in my name. He flinched. Don't say it like that. How should I say it? I asked, voice flat, romantically. He tried the old line again, the one that used to hook me. We've known each other forever. I nodded slowly. That's why you knew exactly how to use me. His face hardened. You're being dramatic. I almost smiled because it was so predictable it was pathetic. I opened the door just enough to hand him something. The same plain envelope I'd used for his spare key, now holding a printed copy of the sticky note photo and a Single line typed beneath it. Any future contact goes through my attorney. His eyes widened. You don't have an attorney. I looked him dead in the face. You don't know what I have anymore. Then I closed the door. The wedding came faster than I expected, like time had been holding its breath and then exhaled all at once. Mom tried one last tactic. She called the venue pretending to be me, asking about expanding the guest list. But the venue required written confirmation from my email, and I'd already set a password phrase with them because of the contract clause I'd highlighted. When she couldn't override it, she showed up at the rehearsal dinner location with two strangers. My brother's in-laws, like she could force the issue publicly. That was her favorite style of humiliation. A family pile-on in front of witnesses. But I had security, exactly as the contract allowed, exactly as my fiancé and I planned. Calm men in black shirts who didn't yell, didn't argue, just enforced the boundary like it was gravity. Mom stood there, stunned. As security asked for names, checked the list, and politely said, "You're not on it." She looked at me like I'd slapped her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I simply stepped forward and said, "This is my wedding. You don't get to rewrite it." The strangers shifted awkwardly. My brother's face went red. My father stood off to the side, silent, finally confronted with the visible consequences of his silence. Mom hissed, "You're embarrassing me." I met her eyes. "You embarrassed yourself when you used my name like it was yours." Security guided her away, not violently, just firmly, quiet, undeniable. The next morning, I woke up in a clean hotel room with sunlight spilling across white sheets. My phone was still. No group chat explosions, no guilt bombs, just quiet. For the first time in my life, quiet didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. The ceremony was small. 30-something people who actually loved us. No strangers, no extended family performance, no manipulation disguised as tradition. When I walked down the aisle, I felt my throat tighten, not from fear, but from relief. The kind that tastes like air after being underwater too long. Afterward, there was fallout, because there always is when you stop enabling. My mom called relatives to spin her story, but I didn't chase it. I didn't defend myself to people who preferred the comfortable lie. The investigator called me a week later with the update that mattered. The fraudulent filing was flagged, the loan was under dispute, and the evidence tied back to my parents' address and my ex's involvement. It wasn't a neat little slap on the wrist. It was real consequences, real paperwork, real discomfort for people who'd relied on my silence. Then my clinic director pulled me aside one afternoon. "I heard you've been handling a lot personally," she said gently, "but your performance hasn't slipped. You've been leading, even when it isn't your job. We want you in a supervisory role, a reputation win, the final front, the one my mother couldn't touch." I walked out to my car afterward and sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, staring at the windshield the way I did the night I paid off someone else's mess in my head. Only this time, I wasn't staring because I was shattered. I was staring because I was finally free. That evening, I went home, opened my cupboard, and took out my favorite mug, the one I'd been hiding in a high cabinet for weeks, because I was tired of people breaking what mattered to me and then calling me petty for protecting it. I made hot chocolate, slow and careful, and drank it on my balcony while the sun dipped behind the buildings. My phone buzzed once. A message from my brother. "Mom says you ruined everything." I took a sip, felt the warmth spread, and typed back one sentence. "No, I just stopped letting you all ruin me." Then I blocked the number, and the last thing I felt wasn't anger or grief or even revenge. It was something quieter, sharper, and better. I finally learned the difference between family and access, and I took mine away.